Thank you for having me. My name is Bex Claire Hamill. You can call me Bex, but my plants in the show say Bex Claire Hamill. My pronouns are they, them. If you do the social media thing, I am on Instagram as Parsnippity. That is my Plantstagram. I don't always post, but I do try to post about the process of getting ready for the show, to kind of show the behind the scenes of that. This is going to be my third year competing in the flower show. I am relatively new. Both years that I've competed so far, I've had a lot of fun. I've won a lot of ribbons. I did well. After I spent so long trying to figure out the Horticourt rules, I am here to share what I have learned with you. Thanks. So I'm really hoping to kind of demystify that process for anyone who's interested in getting into competing for the first time, or someone who maybe dipped their toe in before, but is really ready to crank it up and take it to the next level, which I encourage you all to do. Okay, so what are we covering today? First, we're going to be looking at what the judges look for, because it's very specific what they're looking for. It's a little different from how you or I might, normally evaluate a plant in our collection. We're going to talk about how we choose plants to show, plants that are, really going to meet those judging expectations. We're going to cover selecting containers, which is one of those things that seems small, but is actually a really big deal in how your plant is presented, and also in how the judges respond to your plant. Like I said, we're going to talk about how I get ready for the show, strategies for success and sanity. I'm going to cover some frequently asked questions that I've heard from a lot of people as newbies are getting ready for the show, because yes, I have dragged all of my friends into doing this with me. Well, not all of them, but quite a few into doing this with me. And then, we're going to have a Q&A. I am a lifelong plant lover and gardener. I've been playing in the dirt since I was a small child. My family are plant people, but I do not have any formal training in botany or horticulture. I have a degree in visual art and English. So that is to say that, you do not have to be a professional. You do not have to be, like a botanist or horticulturist to do really well in the show. You will be competing against people who are, but, amateurs do really well in this section of the show. Things really kind of took off in 2017. Like before that, I had a couple houseplants, and then we kind of worked our way up to about 300 houseplants. Since I'm not rich, so, I got into, propagating and trading and selling so I could get more plants for my collection, because, gotta get more plants. So, I'm very much like an amateur seller, a hobby seller, not a professional. What do I specialize in? I really am like a begonia specialist. I also grow syningas, which are in the African violet family. They're flowering plants, and they grow from these big tubers. So I have a bunch of these that I enter in the show every year. And I really got into these due to my aunt, may she rest in peace, who was, a real begonia maniac, and very into the Gesneriid family, the African violet family, including syningas. So a lot of these plants are plants that I grew from cuttings from her. So it's actually it's it's a really nice experience, and it made me cry when the first one won a ribbon. Okay, so here we are looking at my entries. As you see, there's a lot of begonias. We've got an apicia, that's in the African violet family. Here's a flowering syninga, some terrariums. So it's just so satisfying to me to, start before the show, just look at all my entries there. And then I also usually take a picture of them in the trunk of my car. So here are my growing conditions. I do not have a greenhouse. I grow everything in my house or in my backyard. I live in Philly. I live in a 1,000 square foot row house. So there are 300 plants crammed into there. It is a lifestyle choice at this point. Uh, so, late May, mid-October, which are, really like your tropical plant, okay outside in Philadelphia months, I move most of my stuff into the backyard, which does create some issues we're going to talk about because I have squirrels. And, so some of them I've been keeping inside now. And then in the winter, I'm mostly growing under lights. So LED lights to, because it's a row house. I have limited windows. So some of them are in front of windows and have a grow light on them. Because, we're really going to have to trick them into thinking it's not winter, which we'll talk about a bit more later. So I just want to say, ahead of everything, I don't have any secrets. Like I'm sure some people have like growing secrets. To me, like the biggest secret in the competition is consistency. And if you can't like consistently take care of your plants to that, great level, then, you're not going to have the results. So, I think, I can tell you what I do, but, I don't always do it. And my plants suffer for it too, so no secrets. Anyway, so my grow lights. I use T5 and T8 LEDs. I grow in warm white because it's in my living space, and to me that's the least obnoxious color grow light to kind of live with. For potting mixes, my tropicals are mostly in Fox Farm Coco Loco because I've been trying to move away from peat for environmental reasons. Sometimes I mend it with Turfus MVP, which is a baseball diamond conditioner that is a kind of clay that actually is really great for growing in. Some things I grow in straight Turfus, but it's so much cheaper than buying the specific bonsai clay for plants, and it's been good enough for me. So I also use lava rock, pumice, similar things to kind of increase the drainage in my plants, because a lot of what I grow is stuff that likes the moisture, but is also going to be susceptible to rot if it's not getting that good drainage. So, anytime you see something like this, it's going to need good drainage. For my bromeliads and succulents, which I haven't brought that many of this time, and also things that are lithophytic, which means that they grow on rocks in nature, I'm going to use like a grittier mix. So I might put some Coco Loco in, but I'm definitely going to be putting in some Precision Orchiata orchid bark, which is the little chips, Turfus MVP again, lava rock, granite, pumice, etc. Pinguicula, which I have done really well competing with in the past, but this year they all got attacked by aphids, so we're not going to talk about those. But those I grow in chunky sand and Turfus. So why don't I use perlite? Perlite is a great amendment. I am not knocking perlite. However, in my experience with the chunky mix I'm using, perlite sometimes floats to the top, and then sometimes it even floats above the top dressing because you're supposed to put top dressing on the tops of your show plants. And then I'm there at the show with tweezers picking perlite out of my top dressing. As I'm starting to think about entering bigger plants in the show, I may reconsider that. I may reconsider that for hanging baskets. But just you don't want floating perlite. But you do need to replace it with something like pumice, which is going to be similar but heavier. My fertilizers, I really use a bunch of different stuff. In the summer, especially when stuff's getting rained on, I'm going to use Osmocote, which is an extended release fertilizer. So then I can water things with the garden hose and I don't have to worry about fertilizing all summer. Then, in the winter to switch things up, I use a complete thing. Sometimes, I use a more chemically one like Dynagrow Foliage Pro, which is great. It's got all the micronutrients. And then I also use Max C, which is a kind of gentler one that's really great for carnivores, sensitive orchids, etc. What else do I use? I use Quantum Total Probiotic or some other probiotics. It's a bacterial culture product that helps control bad fungus and kind of makes the plants more resilient, and also is a really gentle treatment to prevent powdery mildew and other fungal issues. Garden lime, limestone chips. Some of what I grows in limestone regions, so they kind of need that more basic soil than what you get. And then, again, because I'm living with these plants, I've got pets, I've got, people living with me. For pest treatment, I'm generally just using insecticidal soap, Captain Jack's Dead Bug, great for thrips. Mosquito dunks, really good fungus gnat control. Ooh, and then things get real bad. We will go to the Bonide Systemic, but I do try to avoid it. But yeah, so that's what I use. I'm not saying this is the best, I'm saying this has been good enough for me so far. And I will continue to experiment and try to get better, but here's what we're doing now. How did I get into competing? Let's talk about that. I have been going to the Philadelphia Flower Show for years. I've lived in Philly since 2006. Started going to the show maybe in 2009. Not every year, but a lot of years. And my favorite part was always the Horticourt. I know lots of people love the big exhibits. I know lots of people love the shopping. But to me, I am nosy and I want to see what everyone else is growing in their house. And I want to see like these weird plants that I have literally never seen before in my life that I can learn about and, get excited about and maybe get one for me. But yeah, I was like a Horticourt super fan. So as I got more into plants, 2017 rolling around, there started to be this element of like, hey, maybe I can do that. Some of my plants are starting to look like some of these plants. So, then I was a little intimidated by the exhibitor guide. I'm going to be honest. However, I had a friend from Begonia Society who started competing, and she was like, it's not that hard. You get to see the show for free, and you can make people look at your plants. I was like, okay. So thank you, Sarah Roberson, for dragging me into this. She unfortunately moved out of the area, so isn't competing anymore. But okay, so I also really like the challenge of growing for the Horticourt, because it's a totally different way of thinking about growing plants than what I do normally for a house plant. So for a house plant, I'm like, I want it to be big, I want it to be healthy, I want it to, kind of not be dead. Like, I don't have like the highest standards for my house plants. But this, really made me, have to kind of optimize my stuff as a grower. My plants have been flowering better, like my caudexes are getting bigger. It's good. It's really good for me to kind of have that structure, that competition to make me, take the best care of my plants possible.
Is that flower, that plant there, it's in the picture?
Ooh, okay, so this is a Sininja. It is not this one, but it's looking similar to this right now.
Okay.
And this was one of my aunt's favorite hybrids. Yeah. So anyway, challenging myself as a grower. I love to show people my plants. Here are some plants that I brought to show you. By the way, these are not show quality plants right now. I just want to make sure you don't think that these are going in the show like this. But yeah, so I love seeing behind the scenes. I love getting to ride in the freight elevator and, meet the PHS staff. I have met so many cool people doing this. I've made new friends, new plant friends, which are always good. We go to gardens together, we trade plant cuttings. It's great. Get ribbons. When people come to my house and see my ribbons, they are impressed. I think it's really nerdy, but I'm gonna ride this. I'm very impressive. Plant glory. I think that speaks for itself. I mean, why does anyone compete at anything? So if you're competitive, here's something you can compete at. And if you're more collaborative, it's something you can do with friends and something you can do as a team. So really something for everyone. And then finally, like Gabrielle said, this really helps support PHS. And, the funds raised from the show is what allows PHS to do their cool stuff for the rest of the year. And, having a great, robust horticourt, certainly is bringing people like me into the show. Meet the rules. This is the exhibitor guide, which I mentioned. There are a lot of rules. It's pretty thick. The type's a little small. It comes out early September every year. There are hard copies available, and then there is also a digital version that you can download online from the website. I like both. Like, I like going through this and, highlighting stuff that I might compete in, just when I'm getting ready. Then also, the digital one is useful, because you can use the search function. So if you're like, oh, I want to enter a pelargonium, but I don't know if there's a pelargonium specific category. Instead of reading through all the categories, you can just type, find pelargonium, and it'll take you to the pelargonium categories. And yes, there are pelargonium categories. And then the other thing is, if the type is too small in this for you, I do recommend the digital version, which you can blow up as big as you want on screen. So this contains so much valuable information, and really most of what you need to know is going to be in there. It's just a matter of finding it and making sense of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of go through what the judges look for, which this is, verbatim out of the book, but we're going to break it down so that it makes a little more sense and so that we can connect this to, what it actually looks like in a plant. So cultural perfection, a vigorous, healthy appearance, including foliage, flowers, or fruit, and form characteristic of a well-grown plant. There should be no indication of pests or disease. So the foliage should not be blemished. It should not, have, scars from, bugs, even if you treated the bugs. It should not, be crusty. So many crusty begonias. If it's got flowers, it should have a lot of flowers. Or if it's one flower, it should be like a big, perfect flower. If it's got fruit, you want a lot of fruit, and it should be, big, healthy fruit. And, in terms of form, judges love symmetry. We'll talk about this later. But they love symmetry. Distinctiveness. Okay. So what makes a plant? Meritorious and aesthetic appeal. Noteworthy in size and relationship to the container. Okay. Bloom. Oh, here we are. Quality and quantity of bloom, including freshness and substance. Mass effect if appropriate to the class. So freshness and substance means that you don't want your flowers to be kind of browning around the edges. You want them as they're opening freshly, not as they're about to fall off. So that creates a bit of a timing challenge. And then color and mass effect. So, we want a lot of flowers, or if we have one flower, should be big and beautiful. Maturity. Size of plant and foliage characteristic of a mature specimen. So I have a really cool example for this. It is Begonia melanobalata. So as you can see, it's bolate. It's got these bumps on it. And if you look at the younger leaves, they don't have so many bumps. And if you look at the older leaves, they've got all the bumps. So if you're showing this plant, you don't want to show it with leaves that only have, one or two bumps on them. You want it to be absolutely covered in bumps. And there are a lot of plants that do this where, maybe the juvenile leaf is a solid green and then it develops, pretty veining as it gets older. So yeah, you want the mature form. Difficulty. Challenging to grow and bring to bloom if applicable to the class, requiring specialized growing conditions, skill, and care. This is, and then rarity, seldom grown and exhibited by amateur horticultural enthusiasts. In my experience, having seen the judging, for many years, difficulty and rarity are much less important than having a gorgeous mature specimen, even if it is a more common variety. So yes, by all means, like, bring your exotic Thai blue fern, but, only if it's big and beautiful. Oh, any questions? Yes?
Yeah, could you just go back to looking at size in relationship to container? What does that mean in relationship to container? Means it should be proportionate or?
I have a slide about that we will get to, but just very briefly, you want more plant than container, and you want kind of the smallest pot that the plant can comfortably grow in, because that's going to make the plant look bigger in comparison. Okay, cultural perfection. So, vigorous, healthy appearance, including foliage, flowers, and fruit, and form characteristic of well-grown plant. You'll notice that it is all about the visual cues that say healthy plant. So they're not, actually evaluating the health of your plant, they're just looking at it to see if it looks healthy. So what makes a plant look healthy? Fullness, we want to see that leaves haven't been falling off of it. We want to see that it's got, if it's something that grows with multiple stems, we want to see that it's put up multiple stems, big and vigorous. Compact. So I don't know if you've ever grown a plant with not quite enough light and seen how it kind of reaches for the light. We're not entering any of those. We want stuff that is growing nicely and compactly. No visible evidence of damage or periods of less than ideal care. Okay, so here's one of my examples. This is a notably old and mature Gasteria little warty. However, since it spends time outside in the summer and a giant groundhog stepped on it this summer, it now has, we now see evidence of periods of less than ideal care. So while I love this plant, it is not going in the show. And because it's, slower growing, it's going to take a really long time for it to look okay again. But I will enjoy it in the meantime. So there's some less than ideal care. Oh yeah, and we also got a little bit of sunburn. It was a rough summer for this Gasteria. So when you're getting ready, you need to remove any damaged leaves or flowers. So, if you've got those crispy edges, get those leaves off. And if taking all those leaves off leaves you with a not full plant, then maybe it wasn't meant to be for that plant in the first place. Avoid anything stretched out. And then also just choose plants that tend to have vigorous, healthy appearances. I grow some Syningas that just naturally are kind of floopy and wandering, and they're just not going to make that perfect ball of foliage and flowers. So I choose one like this Syninga Esther, which won the Syninga category this year. That just naturally is going to have compact growth, lots of flowers in comparison to leaves, etc. But I'm not going to compete with that plant again because it drops all of its pollen on its leaves, so it was really a pain to clean it off. Now this is just for fun and I'm not showing it again. We're going to do something different. Oh, here's where we're talking about size in relationship to container. Aesthetic appeal is really hard to define. Philosophers think about this, but you'll know it when you see it, I think. You'll know if your plant is aesthetically appealing. We're looking for, like we said earlier, health, fullness, symmetry, or balance. Balance doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfectly symmetrical in all directions, but it does mean that, there's some kind of balance to it visually. Just follow your gut. So here's a fun tip. You get to choose which side of your plant faces front. So if your plant has an ugly side, you can put a little chalk mark on the pot. Here's this one, little chalk mark, and the people who stage the plants at the show will make sure that's facing to the back. So really you need a plant that looks good from 270 degrees, if not 360. So remove anything that detracts from the overall form. this is so hard for me sometimes, because the plant worked so hard to grow that. But, if it's, a perfect ball but has, one thing sticking up, you got to trim it back and then plant it and propagate it and give that piece to me or Gabrielle.
I have a good question. So
Yeah.
the staging part, so once you enter the plant, other folks stage it for you?
Yep. Once the plant is officially passed, which is the process by which they enter it in, you're not allowed to touch it anymore. And it goes specifically to people who are trained to stage the plants on the shelves. They've got a couple different kinds of volunteers with different jobs.
So with that, if the plant needs to be watered or anything else like that, or trimmed or whatever, so how much time goes between the time you do that and the time it's shown? Like if it needs to be watered or that one little stem that needs to be cut back or something?
Basically, you want to come to the show with your plant as ready as possible.
Okay.
Sometimes things happen in the car, especially with Philly potholes. But you want to have it watered. You want to have it, already groomed when you get to the show. And just, any last minute things. Sometimes I'll miss a crusty leaf, and the pastor will be like, So,
You could bring your plant and then the pastor could say, that's not acceptable.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, wow.
But, typically, plants aren't passed if they have, an active insect infestation,
Right.
or, aren't in an acceptable pot, or I've never personally heard of a plant being, so not show-worthy that it wasn't, passed for aesthetic reasons, but perhaps it could happen.
Yeah, I think essentially the pastors are really working hard to make sure that your plant is show ready, so they will work with you. Just like Bex was saying, if there's something that needs to be addressed, they're going to point it out so that you can address it. Because our goal is to have your plant shown in the show. But, there are certain things that if your plant is infested, or it is not a show quality plant, there's damage, significant damage or something like that, wouldn't be show quality. But we really do work with exhibitors to make sure that all plants that can make it into the show make it into the show.
Well, that's been absolutely my impression as an exhibitor too, that, you really want the plants in there and you want as many people showing as possible, because that's what makes the Horticourt a robust and wonderful experience.
So if the show starts tomorrow, when are you bringing your plant in? Today, tomorrow, 3 days before?
Oh, that's we'll cover that
Okay.
afterwards. But it's about it starts about 24 hours before the show opens to PHS preview. But you can even bring your plant the morning of, but I don't recommend it. But we'll talk about that a bit
Right,
later.
so I guess my question is, if you're bringing in, even if it's water, or it's a plant that needs more water than usual, what kind of care does it get once it's turned over?
They have watering forms, so you can fill out a watering form for your
Okay.
plants.
Okay.
So if your plant needs, distilled water as opposed to tap water, if your plant needs to not be watered at all, if your plant needs extra water, you can fill that out, and they'll put a little sign next to your plant, and then when the waterers go around in off hours, they will do their best.
Okay.
And also just noted, they don't water all the plants, they don't automatically water succulents, they don't water terrariums. But, you can make a special request for a succulent to be watered.
Okay.
Back to aesthetics a little. So this one's a little sad. So this is Begonia bipinata fida. This is, a plant that was, very healthy and robust. This was a plant that is definitely higher difficulty level, seldom exhibited by amateur horticulture enthusiasts. However, you'll see it's kinda got a weird symmetry issue happening here where, most of it's over here, and then it's got a branch going out there. So, this was a third place plant. The judges are not so impressed that I grew a large Begonia bipinata fida. They're more concerned that it's not, the full shrubby shape that, it ideally could be. So, lesson learned, and, I'm just glad people saw my begonia bipenata fida, because I thought it was impressive. Ooh, distinctiveness of size. Okay, so, plant hesitating maturity. So with this one, I'm looking for the bullate leaves, and also I happen to know, having seen other people grow this variety, that the leaves can get much bigger. So I am not showing this little guy who is not mature in the show. So we're looking for something that's larger than your average specimen. This is my begonia. I don't know how to say it. It's like Jihoe. I looked it up on the internet, couldn't find any this size, which to me, indicates that, maybe I should show it as something that, would impress the begonia judges with its size. Larger than other specimens in the competition. So this is something that you kind of learn over the years. So this is a pretty old, pretty big Horticourt salicornioides. However, there are people in the competition with much older, much larger Horticourt salicornioides. So I'm not going to put this plant up against those in the general flowering cactus category. I might show it as a cactus grown in the house so I'm not competing against the big guys directly. But
I have another question.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's very important that you know the actual, and pronounce the very actual technical name of the plant.
Pronunciation, as you can tell, is not necessary. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these. I'm just taking my best guess. But you are going to need some kind of name for it because you need to enter them with their botanical name. There's an online database, the Flower Show database that has a ton of plants in it. So you're gonna match your plant to those plants which have the your technical Latin botanical name. And if you don't know what it is, if I know I have a begonia but I don't know which type of begonia it is, I can enter it as begonia species. But the PHS really does and the audience likes to know, ideally what the plant is. But if you're having a hard time figuring out what your plant is, people would certainly be happy to try to help you give it a name.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Fills the category specified pot size. So if there is a secret to the show, it's the pot sizes, I think. Here I have Microsorghum thailandicum. It's, a rare fern, nicely grown. However, I know that the fern category has a 6-inch pot maximum. This is a 4-inch pot, and it is not big enough to go in a 6-inch pot yet. So what I might do is I might enter this as, a foliage plant grown in house, 4-inch pot or under. So I know it'll be one of the bigger ones in that category. So that's the pot size secret. And then also, if a plant isn't noteworthy in size, it can still be stunning in a group planting. So this guy's had some ups and downs in its life, but you'll see here that it is featuring in this blue ribbon winning terrarium. So, you can kind of squish them all together and come up with something really nice that way. Because there are some categories where you do get to mix and match, like the terrarium categories and the container garden categories.
Quick question, if it says pot over 6 inches, that means it could be any size over 6 inches, right?
Yeah,
There
it
would
could
be
be
no
24
max.
inches. It
Okay.
could, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no limit. Or the only limit is what you can and want to be bothered to bring to the show. Here's a comparison. My Begonia Sutherlandii Saunders Legacy in 2022 versus 2023. And you can see what a difference a year made for the maturity of this plant. It's tuberous, which means that it's going to shed its foliage and flowers every year and then regrow. With the bigger, more mature tuber, it just put out a much bigger, better plant. And that's the difference between, this is the difference between a second place plant and a first place plant. Relationship to container. So, again, we're going for size, vigor, abundance. We're fitting the pot to the plant, we want a lot more plant than pot. So like for example, for this one, I think this pot is visually like a little too big for this plant. But, you know, just because it's like so kind of wispy and like not that solid. So, you know, I don't expect this plant to win a blue ribbon at the show. But I do keep showing it because I love it. And I want people to look at my plant. Look at my plant. But, you know, so in a couple years, this might be in a better relationship to the pot. But I'm not going to cut its roots off to get it into a better sized pot.
Is there like a fractional relationship that you would give to container versus plant?
Yes. So aesthetically, you know, we go with the rule of thirds a lot of times. So, you know, I'm thinking like, you know, about maximum of 1/3 pot to 2/3 plant. But, you know, sometimes you can get away with even less pot, especially for like a succulent or something. And then there are other plants that just, you know, aren't gonna take up that much space compared to the pot. So if you've got, I don't think I brought anything like that. No. So if you've got anything that's like kind of a crawler, like that is not going to be the same, you know, you don't have the same concerns with proportion to the plant, but you want it to be, or the proportion to the pot, but you want it to be like spilling over the edges then to give you that impression of like size, abundance, bigger than the pot. So, you know, if you have like a peperomia prostrata or something, which I use in a lot of terrariums, that's like, you know, I've seen some gorgeous examples of that grown in like, you know, a narrow, tall pot and then like spilling over with abundance. Very nice. So in terms of the rule of thirds, you know, coming from the gesneriid world and growing African violets for show, those they say, like that's definitely, they say, you know, the plant's diameter should be 3 times the pot's diameter. So if you have your plant in like a 5-inch pot, you want to make sure it's a 15-inch crown. I cannot grow those kind of African violets, which is why I do not compete in African violet categories. I am not that good at it. But yeah, so the exhibitor guide is going to have all your pot requirements, and it's also going to, you know, go into what's preferred, you know, which is like a clean, not too exciting terracotta pot. And then, you know, you'll also go into like what's acceptable, like, you know, terracotta colored plastic pots, which I use for, you know, my bog garden plants because it's weird to me to put terracotta in water. But yeah, check the exhibitor guide. That is going to have all the information you need. And if you have any questions, reach out to PHS and they will definitely tell you. Reach out to your hort chairs. I usually reach out to Thomas Hawkins just because I know him. But, you know, if you're competing in, like, orchids, there are different chairs for orchid divisions, and there are other people who are not Thomas, so you can bother them, too. Yeah. So, you know, it's time. I'm walking around my house trying to think, is this a show plant? You know, who's going to the show this year? Because it is certainly not all of them. So, you know, first I'm thinking, like, okay, who have I had for a while? Who is, you know, going to show that maturity to the best of its ability? Who's going to be, you know, larger than any other examples in the show? So, you know, so I'm like, okay, this is like a 6-year-old Sininja tuber. I think I can expect some pretty good things from it compared to like, you know, the 1-year-old Sininja tuber that I propagated this summer. Some plants grow really quickly. Like this I grew from some pieces that fell off one of my friend's begonias last competition. But, you know, it's really been going wild this year. So I'm hoping that another 3 months will get me to competition size. Can be moved. I have a really nice 6-foot tall plant that I think is never going to go to the show. Some people rent like vans or box trucks. I'm not there. Like, you don't have to be there. Like, I am, you know, whatever fits in a Subaru Impreza. You know, that's what's coming to the show. So I'm sorry you will never see my Diascorea discolor. It's very nice. You'll have to take my word for it. Looks good now. now or has the potential to look good in 6 months. So here's, kind of where you need to know your plants. This is not a show plant now. However, I do know that, 6 months. 3 months. We're at 3 months now. This was so, I see that this one is already coming out of dormancy. It's got like these little stems coming up. So I can say like, right now it just looks like an ugly, beat up old potato, but I know that, in 3 months it's gonna be huge and beautiful. Other stuff, is slower growing. So, with this one, pretty much I know what I see now is what I got. It'll grow more over the summer, but I'm not going to give it like quite enough light over the winter to really get it. And that's fine. Happy in my conditions / fun to grow. Don't grow anything that makes you miserable or unhappy. Like, there are so many plants that you can grow. Find the stuff that you love, like the stuff that looks beautiful to you, the stuff that is not a constant battle in your house conditions. Like, in Philadelphia, our houses get really dry in the winter. So that means that, if you're going to be growing, these kind of begonias, you're going to be growing them, in a terrarium or in a cabinet. But, like, I'm not going to be growing the huge ones that need extra humidity because I just can't give them that, and that would make me crazy. So, I just, like, whatever lives, and that's what I keep growing. It's survival of the fittest in my house. Able to survive the show. So the show means that your plant is going to be without sunlight for about, 2 weeks, give or take, or a week and a half. And, most plants can survive that, but, you're also dealing with some temperature swings. Like, if your house is really warm, the convention center will get, like, a little chillier than your house. Like, it's certainly not freezing in there, but, when it's not full of people, it can get down to, like, I think, like, 60-ish, maybe. Does that sound right? I don't know. Colder. Bring layers. Dress in layers. So, for example, like, some plants, like acacias, are known to be cold sensitive. Acacias seem to be able to survive the show, like, okay. But, if you have something that's more cold sensitive, which I don't grow, I don't know, that's something to think about too. And then, also, like, in terms of humidity, like, I'm growing this in a cabinet at home, so I needed to make sure that it could survive outside of the cabinet and wouldn't just, collapse into a crunchy, crispy mess. But
Is that the closed cabinet?
Yeah, so it's like an IKEA cabinet that's got weather stripping on the sides, and it's usually about 80% humidity in there. But I accidentally let it go way down, and this survived, so that was like, yes, this can survive the show.
So what about the light needs of a plant? Like, some like shade, some like sun. How is that going to do it in a week and a half, 2 weeks in the flower?
So most of them are okay, in my experience. I think it helps, like, not water the succulents, because I know that if you, like, water a succulent and then leave it in the dark, you're going to wind up with, like, a really tall succulent. So, like, by not watering them, it, like, kind of, they're not trying to grow, and, like, the week and a half is really not that bad for most plants. But, just keep in mind they're going to need a little TLC when they get back.
And the lighting, I know you talked about the lighting in your first slide, so what if it's a plant that needs bright light? It needs a little bit of light.
It needs bright light, but, it's not growing, so I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
And I know from experience, because I've shown it in the show before, that it looks exactly the same when it's out.
Okay.
But, sometimes the plants are not that happy when they come out of the show. But, that just means that you bring them home and you, like, immediately give them what they want. Like, if they're a little thirsty, you give them nice deep water. If they're, like, if they're looking a little pale, put them in the sun. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and then also has that wow factor. Like, some plants, like, even if they're big and very healthy are just not that impressive or exciting. So I like to show stuff that I would be excited to see. Some plants aren't for show, and that's just fine. I have like this plant. I can love my gasteria even with its weird damage, but I'm not gonna bring it to the flower show. Here's where we get into how to not make yourself crazy going into this. This takes you really gotta look at yourself. So I've identified my strengths, and we're not calling them weaknesses, we're calling them challenges. So, okay, what do I have going for me in this? I am really into details, love the details. I can read the exhibitor's guide and remember the details, that's cool. I'm good at problem solving, so, how do I get this plant to the flower show, without killing it? Like that's, I enjoy that. I'm a very experienced plant nerd and indoor grower. I have really been at this for a while and have, I love this. I love doing this. I am a Gesneriad. They say it both as Gesneriad and Gesneriad. Excuse me if I switch back and forth. I don't know which is correct. I have really good Gesneriad and begonia expertise. I've been growing them for like 20 years, which is better than, a lot of people my age can say, because I have that family background. So, I definitely know more about growing syringes than your average person. I have good design sense. I'm trained as a graphic designer, so I feel like I'm pretty good at eyeing a plant and saying, okay, this is good in proportion to the pot. This is not good in proportion. Or, designing a terrarium so that it, is visually pleasing and really highlights each plant to the best of its ability. That is something I feel like I can do well. I have really good plant friends, which is really nice for this. If you have a partner that you can drag into this, that's cool too. But I have friends who compete. So for example, my first year, one of my friends got COVID and wasn't able to bring her plants home. So, I was able to, bring her plants home for her. And, another friend in our group had to work one of the mornings of re-entry. So someone else, re-entered her plants for her. So, it's not, we are competing against each other, but, it is great to have, people who are doing this with you. Whether they're also competing or not also competing, you do need people to support you in this. And I have a pretty good sun porch. A lot of people don't have a sun porch. I have a sun porch. It's not exactly a greenhouse, but I can, I do have more sunlight than a lot of people in similar Philadelphia row homes. So that's an advantage. Life's unpredictable. My life's unpredictable. That results in inconsistent plant care over time. And that shows. Like you can see when you let a plant wilt enough times, it's not going to look great. Organization does not come naturally to me. I'm great at finding the details, not so good at keeping track of them. So, I'm clumsy. Every year I drop one of my show plants and break it. I am expecting it now, so I will not be sad when that happens. So, I'm getting more experienced, but there are people who've been doing this for decades. So, coming into it, I did, I was new. Everything is new to me, and that's a challenge. Limited natural light, limited space, low ambient humidity in winter. That's all, the effect of growing in my house versus, a greenhouse or something. Okay, so we've identified the strengths. We've identified the challenges. How are we going to make this into a coherent plan? Make schedules and spreadsheets to keep myself on track. I keep them on my phone. I set reminders on my calendar. That allows me to not worry about it all the time. Knowing that I'm going to get, that ding on the day that I need to, send this email in is very helpful. Study the exhibitor guide and talk to other competitors. That's how I overcame being inexperienced. The information really all is in here. And I was able to, talk to people who've been doing this longer than me and, picked up their tips and tricks. And I will share a couple of those later. Work on more plants than I want to enter. So life's unpredictable. I am clumsy. We're gonna, if I want to have 15 entries, I'm gonna be working on 20 plus. Grow plants that are smaller at maturity and can fit on my existing light stands or terrariums. This one's so hard for me, but, because I want to grow giant plants. But, having a small house, really focusing on those like 4 to 6 inch pot categories is probably the smartest idea for me. Choose plants that grow fast. So to me, like having issues with inconsistent plant care, if I can grow something that has a yearly dormancy and that grows fresh every year, all I have to do is make sure that my care is consistent for like 4 months instead of 12 months. So that's why I grow a lot of tuberous things. Oh yeah, and choose plants with some drought resistance. So again, inconsistent watering. So, I'm growing tuberous things, I'm growing gasteria, I'm growing, even this guy is like pretty drought resistant as ferns go. And then I'm also putting things in terrariums, like, this is an example of something, this is like really ugly, please don't judge me. But this is an example of a plant that I like forgot about for months, but it was in a terrarium, so it's very much still alive. Knowing the important dates. Okay, so yesterday the Flower Show database opened for pre-registration. You don't have to do it online. I like doing it online. If you run into trouble doing it online, do reach out to PHS. So we've got 2 months, then the online pre-registration closes, and they must have the paper forms, which you're hopefully not using by then, not postmarked by then. They have to be received by January 31st. Valentine's Day, preliminary plant list for entries containing 2+ plants due. So because of the nature of the database and how it works, if you have an entry with, like a mixed terrarium where you've got like 5 different plants in it, you just need to send them a list of those 5 plants with their proper botanical names.
And the online form is under that penhort.org, the FS.
That's the email address, but if you go to the Flower Show website and you go to the Hort page, there is a link right directly there.
If you're bringing like more than 3 plants, please bring helpers. They're really gonna be useful for you. They can like watch your plants while you go, run and find a passer if you need to. They can help you carry things. They can keep you company and talk you off, talk you down if you start to freak out. But do bring friends and do request credentials for them by the 14th, please. And also deadline to get accessories approved. What's an accessory? So there are a couple categories where you are allowed either natural accessories or artificial accessories. Like, I am totally blanking on what it's called, but like there's a category where you make like a little landscape in a container garden, and you have to get those approved.
Wardian?
Not Wardian, like the open one. Oh, that's like a little mini landscape.
Garden landscape design.
Thank you. And then about the same time, PHS is going to be mailing you out a packet, and that is going to have like your parking pass, your credentials, and all the like really detailed information on how to park for the show and like that kind of logistical stuff. And again, if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to Gabrielle or April or someone at PHS. We'll be very happy to help you get your plants in.
Is there an age restriction or a helper's request? Because my children need to earn their keep.
Well, the thing, so there's one restriction is that during setup and tear down, we cannot have anybody under the age of 16 on the floor. But anybody over the age of 16 can be a helper.
Okay.
Yep.
In case you didn't know, the Flower Show has 3 judging cycles. Most of the categories are the same, but there are a couple like special categories each day that are specific for that day. Here's where we get to the dropping off, and this information is all in your exhibitor's guide along with the times that they need to happen. And sometimes they give you more information, and you'll get more information on that in your February packet. So Thursday, February 29th, and the early morning of Friday, March 1st, are your entry days for your first Friday judging cycle. I recommend doing it Thursday afternoon if you can, just because things get a little crowded and backed up on Friday morning. Monday, March 4th, early morning, Monday judging cycle. Thursday, March 7th, you enter for the second Thursday judging cycle. And second Thursday judging cycle is mine and many people's favorite because you get double points for pre-entered plants. And also, you've got some really cute specific categories like the small collections. So, it's like the parent plant and the offspring that you propagated from it. Or, 3 plants in the same genus. And I really like those, and you get extra points for those too. So those are fun.
And what were the times for the days? You said morning or afternoon for certain days?
Yeah, and that information is going to be in your exhibitor's guide.
Okay.
And then sometimes I know we get more specific information about, sometimes the hours on Thursday are expanded closer to the date. But, that's all going to be in your February packet.
Okay.
And most of it's in your exhibitor guide. So you're going to have, hold on, let me go on the
So
page.
for the Thursday, it's going to be in the afternoon. For Friday, it's early morning. And every other time you're entering, it's early morning.
Early mornings, like 6 a.m.?
Yes.
7 to 9:15.
And if you are coming on any of the days, the Friday, the Monday, and the Thursday, we are saying to be there at the earliest time. Not to look at the range of time, like if it goes 7 to 9, like if 9:15, that you show up at 9, because that will be a disaster. So we want you to show up at the earliest part of that time.
Yes, make things easier for
Set
yourself,
yourself up for success.
make things easier for PHS, make things easier for the volunteers, get there early, or as early as you can. Oh yeah, and then Sunday, March 10. Take your plants home. So after, you need to be there as the show is ending, which I think is 5 or 6 p.m.
Yeah, 5:30 you want to be there because the show ends at 6.
Mm-hmm. You hang out, and then once the show ends, a couple things have to happen, and then they'll tell you you can take your plants home. But, it is best to wait there so that you're ready the second you can take your plants home. It does get a little chaotic. Okay, so how do we make our plants look good in March? If you're like me, the winter is not your plant's best time. They're either dormant, they're not actively growing, or some of them are just getting started. We need to convince them it's summer. So how do you indicate to a plant that it's summer? Something like this, that I need to tell it, okay, now is your growing season, even when it's cold and dark outside. So I know from experience that one of the big things for Syningas that gives them that cue is water. So I didn't water this for 2 months while it was dormant. I just gave it its first water yesterday because I saw these guys poking up, which means it is ready to go. Other things include the photo period, which is just a fancy way of saying how many hours of light you have in a day. So some plants are triggered to bloom by a specific number of hours of light or by a decrease in light. I can't really speak specifically to which plants do this, but some of my begonias, for example, need that 12-hour day of light to know that it's time to put flowers up for the show. Other ones don't care. Another thing is temperature. Some plant, so my sun porch, I don't heat it all the way, I leave it a little chilly. I've learned that some plants don't want to go into full growth mode in the 60-degree weather, so in that case, I'll move them upstairs because I have a hot plant room that It's, you know, just because my heat in my house is a little unbalanced. So I put them in my laundry room where it's hot, and, you know, then they can grow. What else? You know, humidity, nutrition. Most people don't fertilize their plants, you know, in the winter while they're dormant or not actively growing. As stuff starts actively growing, you need to give it food so it knows that it can keep doing that. And so that's, you know, putting out, you know, beautiful lush leaves that don't show any nutritional deficiency. You want to be giving it, you know, the stuff it needs so it can flower if it's a flowering plant. So, you know, you go back with the nutrition. You know, you take the nutrition away, you know, then you put it back. So, you know, we're kind of going against conventional wisdom here, which says that, you know, winter is the plant's dormant time. We're really working against that. Oh, a tip. So learning about where your plants come from can give you hints about their ideal environment, and different plants respond to different seasonal cues. So for these guys, I actually did look up like where they grow in Brazil, and I try to kind of mimic the amount of water they'd be getting, the kind of media they're growing in. This plant up here is in, it's a Menanthes polyphylla. It's in like the Sempervivum kind of family, and it's from the Canary Islands, and it actually is a winter grower. So this was the summer show, and I had kind of rough time keeping it growing in the summer, you know, so I should really show one in March, but, you know, so like knowing that this is like a winter growing succulent lets me know that like I want to keep the temperature cool for it. I want to, you know, keep it from overheating. So here, I'm a big terrarium competitor. I love terrariums. I love mixed terrariums because I feel like it's kind of like plant art. Record observations of your plants over time so you know how fast they grow. This can be as simple as taking pictures on your phone. So I have like pictures of all my Sininjas from, you know, various years, you know, when they first start like putting out the stuff, the growth, when they, you know, have their full greenery, when they're, you know, first flowering, when they're peak flowering, and I can look back through my pictures and kind of figure out how many months it takes, and that lets me know how far back I need to start them. So here's an example of a terrarium that needed some time to grow in. So you can see that it's got like a little micro mini Sininja, it's got some, you know, creepy crawly stuff, the Peperomia prostrata I was talking about before, and, you know, you can see over the months how it's really filling out until finally in June it's like, you know, chock full of good stuff. And for terrariums, like, they want it to look full, but they don't want to see it like pressed up against the glass. The timing can be a little bit of a challenge of terrariums. Like, this thing is definitely going to need to get repotted, both because it has gross fungus in its growing media, but also because it's like literally growing out of its container right now.
And what's at the bottom of this terrarium that's in June? The brown and the black?
That's just a drainage layer. So I have, which is optional. That was just the way I built that terrarium. This one doesn't have a drainage layer. Neither does this one. And you're not allowed artificial accessories in terrariums, but you can put like gravel in them. So that's what that is. Okay, other things to start thinking about. Which classes will you enter? Like I said, you know, I'm like trying to think strategically, like maybe this isn't going to do well in the 6-inch fern class. Maybe it'll do really well in a 4-inch indoor foliage plant class. We'll see. Potting. I'm convinced this is the secret. Pay a lot of attention to your pot sizes and specifications. Supports. Only natural materials are permitted. So right now this has like a metal chopstick supporting it. That's not okay. I would need to replace that with, you know, a bamboo stick before the competition. So, you know, get your bamboo skewers going. And also start thinking about how you'll move your plants. You need plenty of helpers. And also, a lot of us have these carts, and I really recommend them. They're, I think they're like beach carts, but, you know, it's just like a big cart with a handle on it that I can stick all my plants in and move them easily. PHS does have some carts at the flower show, but they're extremely limited. So if you're bringing a lot of plants, I do recommend getting your own cart, or borrowing one from a friend if they have one. I also see like some wagons, people are creative, but I've got the folding cart. Other cool things about moving plants, gotta start thinking about how we're boxing them. Here is a custom-made box to carry my Sininja. So, I've taped up the box, I've traced a hole, or I've traced a circle on it. Now this can go in the car and it will not tip over. And the box also, provides some protection around the edges once it's like growing more. So here is the portion of the presentation where I'm going to talk a little bit about my plants, what I'm thinking about them if they're show plants, and what they will need to get ready to be shown to their best advantage at the show. So here we've got my begonia jihoe, I think. As you can see, this is like kind of symmetrical this way, but we don't have like the beautiful full mound. It's kind of like a line of plant. So I need to figure out if I can stake this in a way so it grows in more of like a full circle, a nice dome. And then I'm also going to kind of cut some of the tips back, which is going to encourage it to branch more. Whether it's going to do that in time for the show, I can only guess. But I will give it everything that it needs to kind of set that up for success.
Now you wouldn't be able to stake it to make it into that form, right?
Not at the show.
Okay.
You can have, I believe, one support for like a begonia. So, if I need one stake, like that's okay. But I try to have no stakes. I stake in the car though, so that things don't break while I'm hitting my potholes. Okay, here's like half of a really cool plant. So what am I gonna do with this? I don't think I can show this as a good hanging basket this year, which I was kind of hoping for. But what I can do is I can kind of like loop some of this stuff back up and repot it, replant it, and hope that I can get like, a really nice like 6-inch pot of something that I can maybe show as, a foliage plant grown in the house, or, combine it with some other trisconchas and, show it as like, small collection. I'm not anticipating this to be a blue ribbon plant, but it's huge, so I'm gonna try to do something with it.
How many plants you usually enter per year? What's your goal and what do you end up with?
I like usually shoot for 20, and I've wound up with like 9 to 15. Because the timing on the Sininjas is hard. Like if they bloom too early, then their first bloom is usually their peak. So I'm trying to get them to start blooming like exactly in the beginning of March, which I do not always succeed at. This one I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. There's actually this one last year for some reason through an oversight we missed the large Sininja pot size. So I entered this as a caudiform plant, meaning like a plant that forms one of these big lumpy potatoes out of its stem where it stores carbohydrates and water. And what I did for it was I actually moved it into a smaller pot to really highlight the size of the caudex. The first judging round, I got like a 3rd place. I was like, okay, why? This is really cute. And I realized that the leaves were covering the caudex, and you couldn't see how large the caudex was. So I actually took some of the lower leaves off, and it became a 1st place plant. So, think about the category. Think about what they're asking for and what they want to see. And
so do they tell you? Do they tell you why you got 3rd place or no?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
But what I do is I like take pictures and then I like analyze the class afterwards because I'm way too into this. You don't have to do that. But like, you know, I'll go home afterwards and I'll be like, okay, you know, who won, who got second, you know, why did the judges like these better than my plant? What can I do to make my plant more appealing?
So when you made that adjustment, that was over 2 years, it wasn't on the same show?
Same show. So because I was re-entering it, you know, because you have 3 judging rounds, the first judging round was my 3rd place, and then I took the leaves that were blocking the caudex off, and the second judging round I got 1st place plus like a special commendation ribbon for a flowering Gesneriad. Like, grooming makes a lot of difference. Yes.
So after the first judging round, does everyone take all their plants off the floor and re-enter them?
Sometimes. So there is something you can do called enter every day, enter all days, and that's usually available for plants that are either like succulents or foliage plants that aren't necessarily going to have spent flowers that you need to groom off. So you can enter all days, and not have to take your plant and re-enter it. But I'm a micromanager, so I like to look at my plants every round and re-enter them and groom them and, you know, reanalyze.
And
So
how
when
much
you
time?
entered on Thursday, you have to physically come back, get your plant, take them off the floor, and the next day bring them back, or?
Nope, it's all done in the same morning. So you're gonna come in Monday morning, get your plant off the floor, put your plant back on the floor.
Go through passing?
It goes through passing.
Yeah, so
So-
it's not, you don't put it back on the floor? You
No,
have to-
it has to like go through like, you know, the registration process again. But you know, the second and third days are usually a little bit easier because hopefully you've worked out some of your bugs about you know, if you weren't sure about a class.
Are you taking the plant home to do that, or is there a staging area somewhere that you can take it and fix it and bring it back?
They have folding tables set up around the Horticourt. Space is limited though, so you know, again, like I try to groom as much as possible at home. I try to get there early so that I can like get a table. I share a table with friends usually. You know, we'll stake one out, and yeah.
So between the 2 rounds, the first one where you got 3rd place and the second one, where did you do the?
I took it to a table and I just, you know, I bring scissors, tweezers, like a makeup brush for like brushing dirt off leaves or getting it out of crevices. Like I do come with like a full plant grooming kit, but I don't want to use it. Like, but I will use it if I have to. But I think in this case I just like pinched them off with my nails. It worked. Cool. So let's see who else we got. Since like time is scarce, we're not gonna really go through too many. But I did just want to talk about this one, which I think is like an interesting case because this is like absolutely hideous right now, but I'm actually really confident that I can like make this into a show plant by March. So what I'm gonna do is, you know, I see that I've got some like rotten leaves that I need to take off. I've got like mold that I need to wash off. I've got crazy roots all over the place. So, you know, I'm gonna get a bigger terrarium. I'm gonna wash off the fungus. I'm gonna kind of separate out, you know, the individual growths of this guy, and then I'll enter it as in the category that is multiples of the same plant in one terrarium. Or what I can do is I can, you know, take one of the best, you know, parts of this that, you know, has been growing nicely and hasn't really been affected by its subpar conditions. And I'm going to think, you know, okay, like what would this go with in a terrarium? You know, I'm trying to look for like a variety of textures. I'm trying to look for, you know, either, you know, we can be matching the colors or the colors can be, you know, all over the place. But, you know, with this one, you know, I'm seeing this like really nice mint green and pink. So, you know, maybe I will, you know, mount this nice, kind of minty tillandsia on a piece of wood in that terrarium, because you can have wooden terrariums. I've got this, really small, like not very well cared for, Peperomia caparata, Harmony's Pink Lady, but I see like that the colors are really matching. So, I'm just gonna like try to grow this like as big as healthy as and possible in the next 3 months. And I know that it's a fast growing variety if I take care of it, so I feel good about that. And then here's another kind of like silvery green one that's, gonna be good for like creeping and covering the ground. So, I look at them together, like the colors. Yeah, that'll work. Ooh, okay, Horticourt entry packing list. Please remember, your clean terracotta pot, preferably terracotta. It could also be other unglazed clay or like terracotta colored plastic. It should be clean. Your name and phone number should be on the bottom in permanent marker.
Wow.
So this should be on all the bottoms of your pots. I write it, on my terrariums. Make sure it's labeled. It'll make everything easier. Top dressing, like I mentioned, they want you to cover like all the soil with, something nice to look at, like gravel or orchid bark or sphagnum. So I bring extra in case it spills in the car, because we like to be prepared. Completed index cards. Literally, like my least favorite part of showing is you need to fill out index cards for each form, or several index cards for each plant. I really recommend for the stuff that you have to write over and over again, like your name and phone number, get like a label printer or, print out some mailing labels. You don't want to be writing this over and over again. And don't wait till the night before to do them. Like, I learned that the hard way. It takes longer than that. Like, just start them in advance. Cardboard or plastic box for each plant. Padding, stakes, whatever else I need to keep it secure in the car. Okay, other items. Make sure you have everything that, the envelope that they mail to you, make sure you got that. Folding cart. I bring a watering container in case anything looks like it needs, water right then and there. Try to water at home, but you never know. Waterproof marker, pen. Because I compete in terrarium, I also bring paper towels, glass cleaner, and like other supplies to get my fingerprints off at the last minute. Makeup brush or any soft brush to kind of like get any potting mix off leaves. More top dressing. More index cards in case I filled one out wrong, because I usually fill one out wrong. Tweezers, scissors, and finally snacks and drinks, because you don't want to be hangry when you're entering your plants, and it can take a while, and it's so much better with a mug of coffee. Ooh, okay, so here's the frequently asked questions. Do you have to pay to enter? No, you do not. It's free, yay. And you get to see the show for free, which is great. You get entry credentials for every day that you're entering. So, you've got entry credentials for, 3 days right off the bat. Once inside, you can get your hand stamped, come back, and enjoy the show at a more reasonable hour. You also get a thank you ticket from PHS, so, if you dragged one of your friends into helping you with this, that's a nice way to say thank you to them. Do you win anything? No, you don't win money, but you do win ribbons and bragging rights, which are very impressive in certain circles. Okay, what happens if I pre-register a plant, but it does not look so hot? And I do encourage everyone to pre-register. There are ways to register day of, but you don't want to do it. Pre-register. If the competition comes around and the plant does not look so hot, you don't have to show it, and there is no penalty. So, if you're thinking of entering a plant, put it in your account. You can also substitute like a different plant that meets the class specifications. So like if I enter one Sininja and it's not flowering at the right time, but I have another one that's in like a similar size pot that is flowering, you can swap them out. There's a process by which they have to change the information, but you can swap them out. What happens if I don't register a plant, but it looks awesome at showtime? this happens too. Try to register your plants though. So you can enter up to 6 plants on the day of in the horticulture classes, and then up to 6 in the orchid classes, which are evaluated separately. But if you're gonna do this, get there like before 7, please. Like, it can take a while. There can be a line. I don't want to dissuade you from doing it. Like, I did some post entries this year. It was fine. It just took a while. How much of a time commitment is it? So, registering your plants shouldn't take too long unless you're one of those people who is showing hundreds of plants, but I don't think we have any of those here today. You need to be available if the nomenclature committee has any questions about your plants. My, Pinguicula lawiana, like, Calcarn red, like, was it the same as, like, this red cultivar, or was it a different cultivar? They really try to get it right, which I love. Oh yeah, so you're gonna have to come to the convention center at least 2 to 4 times to enter plants and pick them up. 2 times would be if you're like just entering succulents and doing enter all days, and then every day if you're like me and entering flowering plants and trying to groom them every time.
Why do you have to come 2 times if you're a succulent?
So if you are doing enter all days, you don't need to come on the Monday or the second Thursday, because your plants will be automatically re-entered.
Oh, I see, so you just 2 days, meaning
Mhm.
bringing it and then taking it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't have to enter your succulents that way. Like, you can enter them as you can enter them normally and then just re-enter them every day. But minimally you're coming twice, but most people are coming 4 times. You gotta fill out a lot of index cards, like I said, that takes a while. And then, just be, know that you're gonna have to like do stuff to your plants to make them look good. You're gonna have to, wash the pots, you're gonna have to top dress them, you're gonna have to, take any like crusty stuff off. Okay, yeah. Enter all days, we just talked about. It's not required. You have to pre-enter. Like, you can't come the day of and then do enter all days. And it's really great for busy people who grow foliage plants and succulents. So, okay, you're not convinced after this. I mean, I don't know why. There's a lot of fun. But let's say you're not convinced and you still want to get involved. There are so many volunteer opportunities. The flower show is absolutely powered by volunteer energy. The volunteers are amazing. We, can't get enough of them. Each year, over 2,000 people volunteer. And, some of those you need some specialized experience for. Like, if you're a passer, we like you to know a little bit about plants and showing plants. But some of them, you don't need any experience for. So, volunteer. And, again, like this, it's a great way to meet other people who are passionate about plants. And you also get entry to the show on the day that you volunteer. And, depending on how many shifts you do, you can also get like that extra thank you ticket so you can bring a buddy with you for free. Cool. Okay, now we've gotten through the frequently asked questions. Let's ask some more questions.
In the guide, some of the categories say informal, and then there's another one that says formal. Can you tell us what the difference is between those?
I should mention that bonsai isn't permitted in the show, which I meant to mention earlier. However, you do need to groom your plants. A formal plant is typically one that's groomed more aggressively. So think about like, little miniature topiaries. So like, if I'm growing, like I was trying to grow a formal plant, I'm not succeeding at formal plants, but maybe next year. So like if you're like gonna trim your ornamental pepper plant into a perfect sphere, that's a formal plant. If you're gonna like, grow your little string of hearts up, a support into like a perfect circle, that's a formal plant. And then informal plants are, they are groomed, but not to the same extent. Any other questions?
I have another one if nobody else does.
Oh, yes.
Remind me how long the flower show is and then how long is this section? Is this for the whole length of the flower show?
Oh, it's for the whole flower show.
Okay.
So the flower show, guests start coming on Friday, and that's the preview for Members Day, I believe. Then it opens to the public on a Saturday, and goes through till the next Sunday. So your plants are there for like 10 days, I think. But yeah, the Horticourt is there for the entire flower show.
So as I've been scheduling my life and fun events to do, I keep saying I need to find out how many days I need to be available to be at the flower show. So should I kind of clear out my life doing that?
I really feel like you should clear your entire life out for that 12-day period.
Yeah.
And when you're not
And the
entering
month leading up to
plants,
it.
and you're not doing all the artistic classes, that you're volunteering in all kinds of shifts. That's my recommendation.
What Gabrielle said.
Yeah.
What Gabrielle
I was
said.
thinking about that. I need some parameters of what those days look like.
Minimally, you need to come either Thursday or Friday, Monday morning, Thursday morning, Sunday evening.
But just plan to come all the days.
But come all the days, yeah,
'Cause
seriously.
it'll be so much fun.
I'm there all the days.
But
Because I also exhibit, because I don't know what's wrong with me.
I
Yes.
don't grow any of the plants you grow.
Yeah.
So, I could bring my plant on Thursday and submit it,
Mhm.
and take it home after the first judging.
Correct.
It does not need to be there the whole time.
You are correct.
Some people go away and come back during the week and,
Yeah.
or they take their plants out because they're going away the second weekend.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the
Yeah,
whole
no.
time.
Not at all. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah,
And
you
what
can't
were
eat.
those dates
And-
again?
Oh, I don't remember them offhand. They're in the booklet. We can.
The show starts on the 1st.
Yeah.
March 1st?
For the preview, and
Uh-huh.
then it's, goes until the 10th.
Yeah.
But you could
So-
see every day and come drop your plant off on Thursday, leave, and then pick it up
On Sunday.
on
Yep.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Meet
And
a date.
you know what I've been told, I don't know if it is true or not, is that the double points that you get on the second Thursday is to encourage people to leave their plants through the final weekend of the show, so that they have like a very robust horticourt and people aren't taking them all home early. But you can if you need to. So do you have any comments on that? Or?
Double points?
Yeah,
Extra
double points.
Points, right?
Yeah.
No, I have a different question.
Oh, okay, well, we haven't talked about points at all, what does that mean?
Some people compete, some people are very serious about competing with each other overall. So, you'll get a certain number of points for each pre-entry, no matter how it does. And then on top of that, you get like specific number of points for honorable mention, third place, second place, first place. And then if you get any of like the special big frilly ribbons, those are also extra points. So, I'm not really like on the points thing, but some people are very serious about their points. Yes.
In the very beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that you often will sell your plants
Mhm.
so that you can buy more plants.
Mhm.
Where do you sell your plants? Online?
yeah,
Or is it-
online.
Are there particular sites that you would use for that? Or?
I use Facebook. So I'm on like Philly Plant Exchange
Okay.
and Philly Begonia Exchange, and there are a whole lot of like online buy-sell trade groups. Just like there's a very robust Philly online plant community, and I've actually made some really good friends that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then also, I've done some like pop-up sales also with other friends who do the same thing as me. We're not we're semi-pro. We've gone semi-pro. Yes.
So, question about the way the classes are numbered. There's some classes that look identical in the description, but there's like two sets of numbers for them. So,
Check the pot size.
okay, all right. Yeah, okay, that's
Cool.
that was driving me nuts. I couldn't see the difference.
No, the pot size. That's the secret to the show. Pot sizes. Yes.
So on the topic of pot size, do people take a plant that might be kind of in a big pot and then like trim it down and like smush it in smaller pots to like, is that like, do people get all?
I did that, but I only did it once. Like, ideally, you're not gonna like stress the plant by root pruning it right before you show it, because that's just a lot of stressors on one plant at one time. But this one I knew had like a lot of roots, and because I've got that, because I've got the Caudex, it kind of like will carry it through the hard times. So I felt okay about moving this from, I think, like an 8-inch pot to a 7-inch pot. but aesthetically it made a big difference. But something like this that's already in a 6-inch pot, I know that the roots haven't filled this yet, but I know they will, so I'm not going to try to pot this down. And this one, like, the roots have already filled this pot, so I'm stuck with this slightly too large pot until the plant grows into it. But that's fine, because that's how the plant's happy. And I guess there are things that are more important than winning ribbons. I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Talk about sleeving your plant.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So this is another well-kept secret of the flower show. If you are like me and you don't actually grow your plants in terracotta, like I only grow succulents in terracotta. There are people who grow begonias in terracotta. I can't. So for something like this, I've got like a 5.5-inch diameter plastic pot. So what I'll do is I'll get a 6-inch diameter terracotta pot and just stick the whole thing in. And then I'll use the top dressing, which is your pebbles, your orchid bark, etc., to hide that I've got 2 pots in there. And that is perfectly legal.
And it also keeps your plant more moist.
Yeah, like I can't grow in terracotta because it like creates moisture management issues for me. So I still get like that nice plastic moisture retention. And I know some people use terracotta for the other reason because they don't want that, but for how my plants are growing, for the for the gritty mix that I've put them in, they like plastic. And sometimes I'll even use like a yogurt container because those fit really nicely in a terracotta pot. Drill holes in the bottom though. Oh yeah, and you can put like whatever in there. Like if you grow in pond, or if you're like a hydroponic grower, like you can just hide your hydroponic setup in a terracotta pot. So I know people who like put their, I don't know if you're familiar with like leca, which are these clay balls that some people grow in, and it'll be in a pot that doesn't have drainage because it's semi-hydroponic. So you can literally just put that whole setup inside terracotta, cover it up with some orchid bark, and no one has to know. But for something like that, you might put a note like, do not water. If you don't want people like messing with that setup, and then you can deal with it when you, because if it's in semi-hydro, it's not going to need to be watered that frequently, so you can like give it however much water you want on like, the Monday when you re-enter it or something. Did that answer? Yay, okay. Another question.
So this is like my whole 3rd class. The first one, the second one was this morning.
Mm-hmm.
The ones before, so I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Have you, so I've heard a lot of people join garden clubs.
Yeah.
And have you used that kind of resource, or what kinds of things have you used to kind of help you learn stuff?
Oh, yeah. So I do recommend plant societies. I love plant societies. I belong to a couple, the Indoor Plant Society, hey, and got another IPS person here, and the Begonia Society. Most of them run about $15 a year. They meet on like a Saturday. We have such a robust horticulture community in Philadelphia. It's great. There's a Genariid Society, a Cactus and Succulent Society, an Orchid Society. So, whatever your specific interest is, it's there. And if it's general, join the Indoor Plant Society. We're a lot of fun. But, we do have, like, speakers come in. So, for example, last Indoor Plant Society meeting, we had the guy from Organic Mechanics, which is this really cool, like, potting mix company. And he told us, I learned so much cool stuff about potting mix and my mold problem in my terrariums, and I've got some cool new ideas to fix that. And I also, make plant friends that way. So, that's how, part of how you meet the people who are gonna, take your plants home for you if you have an emergency.
I did see one that's coming up that I registered for that was all about soil.
Yeah, you might have missed that one.
I thought there was one coming up in the new year.
Oh, you're talking about one of the one of our,
Uh-huh.
it's about grooming, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
We are
separate.
having one closer to the show. So if you're taking this class, you're all excited, and then you just want that last bit of information, we're going to have someone that is going to be doing a presentation on January 13th in the afternoon, and it really is about getting your plant ready for the show. Yes, it's really that grooming element.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we have multiple entries for one class?
You can enter up to 3 plants in one class. They need to be different varieties unless it's, there are a couple really odd classes like, Amorphophallus konjac where you can enter multiples of the same plant. And I think also like Clivia, but mostly, you can enter up to 3 different plants. So, I'm gonna enter, if there's like Syningia 6-inch and under, Syningia 6-inch and over, I might enter 6 Syningas. Hopefully they'll all be flowering and I'll enter 6 Syningas. We'll see.
And do people enter different classes?
Yeah, so, I'm all over the place. Like, the only thing I haven't done yet is the orchid classes. Because I grow orchids, but not well. So, I've yet to compete in an orchid class. But yeah, I'm entering terrarium classes, maybe hanging basket, flowering begonia 6-inch or under, begonia terrarium 8-inch or under. You're not a plant for the show. And then some plants can also fit in multiple categories. So, this is, an 8-inch pot, it's a Syningia. I can enter it as a Syningia, or I can enter it as a caudiciform plant, because it has the caudex, or I can enter it as a flowering plant, because there's just a general flowering plant category, or a flowering plant grown in house, because I grew it in my house. So you have options. So if, let's say, you have 10 Syningas, and you can only enter 3 in the Syninga class or 6 in the Syninga class, you can probably find places for those other 4 to show them if you want to.
And that's gonna solve the problem of trying to be one plant into multiple categories. You have to have 3 different plants, a plant for each category.
Oh, yeah, you can't enter a plant into multiple classes. It can only be judged in one class during the show. But what you can do ahead of the show is you're allowed to register it in multiple classes if you're not sure which one you're going to show it as. But when the show happens, it can only be in one class.
Okay.
You can also switch classes between judging days. I can say on Monday I want to show this as a Syningia, and on Thursday I'm going to show it as a caudiciform. You can do that. I know people who've done that. It makes me a little crazy. I try not to do it, but it's an option.
Okay. I think that was my question, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
But not EAD.
not EADs.
Not
EADs
EADs.
can't-
You have to swear that you're gonna keep that plant in that class.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
It's a
don't
blood oath.
don't make Elsa crazy. You gotta. We're doing our best for the PHS staff and the volunteers. Don't make them crazy. Any other questions? Ooh.
Novice versus.
Yeah, I was
Oh.
gonna mention novice.
Oh my goodness, I meant to talk about that. So if you're entering for the first time and you haven't, I believe, won a blue ribbon in a horticulture class yet, you can enter in novice classes, which is a really cool way to, let's say it's a little, the competition might be a little softer, you're going up against, people who are also newbies, and, so you have that option too. But then once you win that blue ribbon, next year you're out. You can continue to show in novice classes through this year, even if you win a blue ribbon on the first day. But next year you're competing with the rest of us. And then another kind of category I like that I've mentioned is grown in house. So that means you're not going up against people who have greenhouses or commercial operations. So, it's just you, me, and the other, windowsill people competing in the grown in house categories.
If they're grown in house, you can put them outside.
Yeah.
What we're saying is you're not
Right.
growing them in a greenhouse or.
Yeah, so you have to have the plant in your possession starting yesterday, December 1st. So you can't just go out and buy a huge hanging basket and show it, the next day. That's not what this is about. But, so to me, if you're growing it outside during the summer, that's in the past. It's been indoors since December 1st, certainly. So it can, go in, grown in house. Some I keep outside year round, and I'm not exactly sure about those. I've got some hardy succulents, but luckily they're too ugly to show because they've been eaten by squirrels. So that might be a question for next year, whether, stuff that lives on, a back deck year round is grown in my house. Any other questions?
How do you mentioned that at the beginning of your presentation, how do you deal with the squirrels and the ones that are just?
I accept them.
Okay.
I don't put out plants that can't get eaten. People have so many ways of dealing with squirrels. I've given up. I'm done. We're coexisting now. The giant groundhog is also, welcome. You're fine. It's fine. It's all fine. And that's why I grow stuff where I can cut all the foliage off at the end of the summer and then regrow it beautiful, fresh, in my house under controlled conditions for the flower show. And then I'll stick it outside in the summer where it can get the rain and the sun and all that good stuff. And the plant will be so happy getting that, but also it'll get ugly looking. So then I cut the foliage off and start the process all over again. And, this is really, there are a lot of bulb classes, and this is what people do in the bulb classes. I don't grow bulbs, but I do grow tubers.
Cool.
Yes?
So you're rendering multiple plants, and that morning, it sounds like it's chaotic. I only did it one time. I just had one plant. So do your helpers go, can you kind of divide and conquer? Do they go take the other plants to the other passing things, or do you do all of that individually?
I think you do it all individually, but your helpers are going to be if you have a huge number of plants to groom and you have people you trust, I know that some of the bigger exhibitors have their helpers help with grooming and stuff in the beginning. Like I said, I'm a bit of a control freak, so my helpers do not touch my plants except to carry them. And I haven't entered more than 15 plants, so I'm not really sure what happens after that. I can handle 15 myself. I can't carry them, but it's good to have the helpers.
Some people let their helpers go off with their plants to the different classes.
Totally.
To stand there with the plants to be tapped.
Yeah, especially if you're competing both in orchid and non-orchid classes, because they're separated.
Just want to make one other mention about challenge plants, although they've missed it for this year, just to talk about that really quickly.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So challenge plants are really fun, and I missed it this year too. So what a challenge plant is everyone gets the same baby plant in the fall and has to grow it as big and beautiful as they can for March. So what you see at judging is 20 whatever however many of the same plant, and you can really see the difference in people's growing skill, I guess, and luck.
And
Yeah.
how do you get that?
So they come out, they will be announced in September. We will usually have a distribution time sometime in September. We will tie it with a workshop like today where someone will tell you the tips and tricks for the 3 varieties that we've selected for that year. And then you have until the show to make it beautiful.
Okay, so you put out an announcement.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So what
Yes.
I would say is to look at the flower show website. What we're planning is start making announcements earlier. So announcements will start on our website sometime in August. The guide will come out in September, and all of the information will be there and available on the website.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'll see you at the challenge plant
And once
next
you
year.
enter,
We're all
you
doing it
come on
next
our
year.
mailing list.
We're all doing it.
Yeah, we're all doing the challenge plan for 2024.
Yes.
We're all volunteering.
Yep,
Yes,
all
all
volunteering,
volunteering,
we'll doing
yeah.
challenge plants.
And what are the challenge plant categories? I mean, what kind of plant do they give you?
It's different every year.
It's a
What is it
challenge.
this year?
This year, it's a geranium, a begonia, and a coleus.
Oh, those are fun.
Yeah, so they're all plants
Wish I
that
did this.
have prolific growth over a short period of time. So that we'll see what those things turn out to be. So when you're at the show, please make sure that you're looking for it. And I just want to thank you so much. Bex, I want to thank you so much for that presentation. It was
Thank
really
you. I'm sorry we went too long.